Hello, everybody. I am going to make a series of videos. I feel like I have to at this point, where we discuss the lore of Wuthering Waves. I am a lore creator. I have a channel called Life Lessons Gaming where I make highly edited lore videos as well as story videos. There is a difference between story and lore. Sometimes they intermingle, but yeah. And I always try to implement a life lesson in it. Now, the reason why this picture is on the screen is this is something that I've been seeing a lot lately. I'm not somebody who does knee-jerk reactions, right? Like, that's just not me. I've seen what you're about to see so many times at this point where I'm just like, okay, I think it's time to talk about this. So this meme that you see right now on your screen is a silenced lore fan, a person who has never read the story is talking, right? And you can put woo-wah. You can put like a little woo-wah symbol right here. Because basically, that's how it feels. Because there's so I made a tweet, I said, uses the skip button. Like, use the skip button in Wuthering Waves. Silence, lore fan, a person who's never read the story is talking. I see so many people in this, so then I made this tweet. As a result, I said, this thing is so funny and cute. So many people get the story and lore of Wuthering Waves wrong, and it's mind-numbing at this point because my platform, just the reality, my platform's not that big. It's just not. I'm being honest. Hopefully, you know, as things progress, it gets bigger, and then when I say something, I won't have to repeat it a billion times because the one time I said it would have reached the community loud enough for them to hear it. But my platform is not that big. So therefore, my platform isn't big enough to reach them. So I'll start that one more time. So many people get the story and lore of Wuthering Waves wrong, and it's mind-numbing at this point because my platform isn't big enough to reach them yet. People are legit giving up on the game due to false pretenses and not understanding the game. It's just disappointing seeing the same misinformed and misguided takes that aren't adequately rebutted due to a lack of well enough equipped counterargument. TLDR, ask around if you don't understand something before making claims as if you do. And that's the problem. People are on here, and you're about to see right now, and this is what I said, I might have to dismantle this in a video soon, and this is the video. There are people in this, as you can see, they wrote quite a bit. And then they also added some more. So there are people in the space who feel as though Wuthering Waves, and I quote, let me see if I can blow this up a little bit. There we go. So there are people in the space who, and I quote, feel as though, they said this could have been explained any better. This is exactly why Woo-Wah's lore has never captured me despite how cool Rover is, despite how cool the cutscenes are. This OP pointed everything out so perfectly. Now, I respect anybody who just says, you know, it's not capturing me. I'm not interested. That's totally fine. Not everything is for everybody. Where I have a problem is when someone tries to make an objective take. What is an objective take? This is bad. Not I don't like it, or this is bad to me, or so-and-so, but when someone says something objective, right? Making a declarative statement, right? A declaration about a thing. When you have not taken the time to actually understand the thing, right? And I just want to take you all, this is like the preemptive life lesson portion, right? To my profile. What does my profile say? Seek to understand before being understood. All right? And there's a Bible verse for that as well in Proverbs. It says, be quick to listen and slow to speak. All right? Be quick to listen and slow to speak. Now let's see just how well the person who wrote this, as a fellow story player, this, I'm not gonna lie, y'all, when I saw it as a fellow story player, I was like, it's disappointing. Because if you're somebody who plays for the story, It's okay to just say you don't get it, right? It's okay to say press X to doubt. I'm telling you, like, it's okay to just say you don't understand something versus making this declarative statement. I don't want to read the first declarative statement, by the way. This isn't just somebody saying, oh, in my opinion. There is no significant world building in Wuthering Waves. That is a declarative, objective statement. There is no significant world building in Wuthering Waves. I appreciate that this person, even though this person agrees with this person, which it's okay, it's right, it's okay. But I appreciate that this person left this person anonymous because I don't want this person to get any hate. That's not the goal of this. It's more so to explain where they're falling off here. Now, anybody who has watched my lore videos, I'll put them in the description. I'll try to maybe put it like below me or something real quick so that you all can see what I'm talking about. This isn't just me like saying, oh yeah, you know, watch my lore videos, but legitimately, I'm just saying my lore videos are proof that there is significant world building. The reality is all of 1.x was world building. 1.x, there was not much story in the sense of what an actual story is. 1.x was literally a giant prologue to the actual story that starts in Renacita. Everything we got up to this point was building up the world, building up the main character, which is Rover, who you're gonna play as, right? That's what 1.x, 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4, that was the point of that. They were introducing you to the world, the issue that the world was having. Were there stories within that? Yes. But the larger narrative of Wuthering Waves really started with Renacita, which is 2.0. But even beyond that, even within the areas themselves, right? Even within the areas themselves. Even within those areas, there was world building. 2.0 is a perfect example. So, I just want to show, like, when people say that, like, just so you know that I'm not just making this up and I'm not just taking their, oh, well, this is just my opinion type of thing. No, that's not your opinion. This is, you're making a statement. You could have just said, I don't see it. Or can somebody show it to me first? You were quick to make an assumption before you made an inquisition. So, as a fellow story player, you said, I'm not really hard to please as I'm a lore player and I like world building. That's the thing. Story/world building and well-written characters are a heart of every entertainment product, no matter if it's a book, movie, or a game. So people like you who are story players are actually hard to please if you look at it from that perspective. And especially coming from Hoyo Games, who have the best story and characters and sometimes the worst presentation. I appreciate that they were at least objective because I still play Genshin, mind you. I play it for the lore. I think their story is hit or miss in the execution. The characters, I like the characters. They're all right. I think some are better than others, but it is what it is. They're not necessarily like offensive for the most part, but it just is what it is. Like I said, I think the lore and world building is good. The story is hit or miss, honestly. But anyway, this isn't about Genshin. This is about Wuthering Waves. So let's continue. There's no significant world building of Wuthering Waves. Well, Rover seems to have built the world, including the Sentinels. So there's that, I guess. Yeah, so they're trying to say, well, there's that, I guess. So you start off by saying no significant world building, and then you say, well, there is this world building, I guess. What you really mean is there's no world building that you, at least that you understand, that you are satisfied with, which is fine. But you have to acknowledge that you just don't understand what exists. But other than that, Kuro does just whatever. They copy stuff that looks cool from other games and go with the flow. So, by the way, that's exactly what Genshin does, just so you know. They literally copy and paste most of the things they do. Inspiration, like that, as they say, mimicry is the greatest form of flattery, right? But legitimately, that's what they do. But to be fair, it's not just a whatever. There is a rhyme and reason. In both games, there's a rhyme and reason. But like I said, I'm going to try to stick to Wuthering Waves for the most part. They basically live off of short-term hype and B00 BS. But there's nothing that binds everything together. It's just a pretty illusion accompanied by phenomenal music, but if you look closer, there's nothing there within the pretty package. And I'm sure anybody who's seen my lore videos is like, wow, this person is lost, because they are. So I'm going to stick with this first point, right? What is tying the world together? All right, I'm gonna give you a little crash course on Wuthering Waves lore and understanding. All right, the thing that is tying the world together is the lament. Okay, and now mind you, this is still very early in the game. The game's story literally started in Renacida. I stand by that 1,000,000%. The story started in Renacida. Everything else, like theoretically, yes, the story started at the beginning of the game, but that was basically a prologue. All of 1.x was a prologue. Like I said, what is tying the world together? The thing that ties the world together is the lament, okay? The waveworm phenomenon, the lament came to the world. It messed a lot of things up. The entirety, and to be fair, I really hope Kuro fixes this, because they basically pulled the Genshin. The Fault in Our Stars, I think, was a world quest that they did, or an event with, the very first time people met Scaramouche, who's a character, like I said, in Genshin. That was an event that never came back as a playable event. So if you missed it, you just missed it. And unfortunately, Kuro did the same thing with Sheng Liao's quest when they had like a festival. So that's just unfortunate. But even if you didn't get a chance to experience that, it still doesn't necessarily matter in the grand scheme of things, in the sense of like understanding how the world comes together. So like I said, the lament happened. It messed a lot of things up. One of the results of the lament seems to be, we don't know if it's a result of the lament or if it's just something that happens, but one of the results of the, at least I don't recall, I could be wrong, I'm not perfect, is Thornodians. Thornodians are a thing, and it hurts the civilization. The Sentinels are also a thing. We don't really know where they came from. It seems like they came from the stars or something, though, because when we learned the Sentinel named Joy arrived on Sol 3 in a pod that we now call the Minglung Chamber, right? And we learn about that in Mount Firmament. So these guys came. The Sentinels are here now. The Thornodians are here now. Thornodians are wrecking things. Sentinels, which are called Oracle Engines, that's actually the name for them, they're trying to help civilization, manage, essentially. We learned in 1.3 during the quest, with Shorekeeper and everything, we learned that Rover, and this is the big thing that a lot of people, y'all have to understand this. You're just gonna have to get used to it. Rover is the main character, okay? This is now, there does not mean that there is not room for other characters to thrive on screen. And I, for one, am looking forward to somewhat of a shift to where we have more of an ensemble way of going about the story, where it's not just like Rover and one character throughout the whole story, or every time a new thing comes, but we get more of an ensemble feel. And to be fair, they have actually introduced some concepts like that. I've told everybody this a bunch of times. Play Chikona story kind of event quest, and you'll see what I'm talking about. They have, I believe, listened to this, they know this, and they're improving on it. But point being, Rover is the main character, and a lot of this does revolve around Rover, because, as this person admitted, Rover seems to have built the world, including the Sentinels. No, first of all, Rover did not build the Sentinels at all. We don't know that. Now, they did say seems, but I'm just letting you know that is not what Rover did. We don't know that Rover built the world, and we don't know that Rover built the Sentinels. All we know is that Rover seems to be in charge. Think about it like Naruto. You have like the Sage of Six Paths, right? The Sage of Six Paths. Now you could in some ways say like he made the whatchamacallit, not the Jinchuriki, but he made the tailed beasts, because he split them from the Ten Tails, right? But, and sorry, Naruto spoilers, sorry. But he never made the Ten Tails, right? He just kind of utilized it. And so what I'm saying is that Rover's kind of like the Sage of Six Paths in a way, to where he's in charge of the Sentinels, but that doesn't mean he actually created the Sentinels. Kind of like a master and disciple thing, yeah. And so the point being is that, once again, the time factor of this is you have the Lament, you have Thornodians, you have Sentinels, and you have a problem, which is the Lament. And what seems to be the case at this point in the story is all these different people are trying to figure out what to do with it. Rover's plan is the Black Shores. There's also another plan which goes into some lore concepts that I'll probably talk about in another video, but the Somme Noir as well was another thing. And from the 1.4 story quest, I believe we figured this out. If not, it's my theory. That's Rover created the Somme Noir potentially with an ancient civilization, and I'll just leave it there as a secondary way of defeating the Lament. So it's kind of like a two-prong approach. Basically, you have the Black Shores on one side, and you have the Somme Noir on the other side. These are both different ways where Rover is trying to stop the Lament, okay? And so we also know that Rover has failed, has tried and tried and tried again. And so this time it seems that Rover's taking a different approach, where Rover said, okay, you know what? I'm just going to be a part of history, essentially. We learned this in the Mount Firmament quest, actually, in 1.1, where Jouet basically says, this time you decide to actually take an active role in history. Instead of just being an observer, you decide to actually be a part of it. And so Rover lost their memories. We don't know exactly why Rover lost their memories. My theory, personally, is it might be something like a Doctor Strange Endgame sort of situation. If anybody's watched Avengers Endgame, it was one of the most popular movies in the world when it came out. So I figure probably a lot of people have watched it. Point being, Doctor Strange was trying to figure out of all the potential possibilities that they could beat the big bad guy, which was Thanos. He went through like I don't know, thousands, if not maybe millions of different possibilities, even billions, who knows. And he found like one possibility, and even that possibility did not have 100% chance of working. But he was like, if there was a chance, this is what we have to do. And basically, I think that's what Rover had happen, where he's tried so many times to solve the problem of the Lament, to where he was like, you know what? This might be the best shot. Maybe the problem is, and this is my theory, that I know too much, maybe, and it influences my decision making. So perhaps if I erase my memory and then I put myself in the timeline, I haven't done this yet. So perhaps this is the thing, this is my bottleneck, and I can experience the world from fresh eyes, basically. It kind of reminds me of Jesus, actually, because the whole concept of Jesus is that Jesus is, he's God. I'm a Christian, so that's my belief. Respect everybody's beliefs, but that's mine. And so the idea is that Jesus, regardless of whether you have that belief or not, you can still understand this from the story perspective, is that Jesus is God, and what makes him unique is that he comes into the world to experience life as a human, so that he can understand what humans feel, to truly be able to empathize and sympathize with human beings. He becomes a human himself. And in a similar way, Rover, who for all intents and purposes in the context of the game is something of a divine being, or otherworldly being at the very least, right? Potentially divine. He does a similar thing where he becomes, in a sense, not literally human, but he does something to where he lives within the world so that he can empathize, sympathize, and understand life from that perspective. And perhaps that's the key to unlocking the final goal of just stopping the Lament, right? So that's, mind you, this is very early in the story, very early. So people expecting like this super grand scheme from something that literally a story that's just getting started is kind of crazy in and of itself. But regardless, the point is, even with that being the case, there's still a lot that goes underneath the surface. So, and that's the general broad world building perspective. We haven't even touched on Rita Sita, right? We haven't even touched on that. And so, which, like I said, watch my lore video and you'll see there is a lot of it. And I guess I would say, just as a little tease, the thing that ties that part together is the Dark Tide, actually. The Dark Tide seems to be playing a very big role, since the very beginning of the story. If you've seen some of the more recent trailers for Wuthering Waves, you'll see in the special record trailer that they put out, you saw what looked like a dark tide kind of coming over the city of Septimont. And you learn about the dark tide literally as soon as you step foot on Renacida. When you walk into the place, to the left of the Genesis Nexus, when you first see it, to the left, there's a conversation being had with a researcher from Huanglong. I believe it's from Huanglong. And a acolyte. And the acolyte is like, oh, blasphemy, you know, you're talking about, because basically they're discussing the concept of the etheric sea, and you'll see Mr. Fullmean, he shows up. There's also another place you see it too. You see it in the book that Phoebe gives you, which is the Codex of the Deep. Some edition of the Codex of the Deep, basically. And so she gives you that book. It's in your inventory. This is literally as soon as you step foot on Renacida's soil. Well, you know, when you get to Raguna City. And that mentions the dark tide as well. And so, like prophecies and stuff like that. So point being, this stuff has been there since the beginning, not just with the story, but also with not just with the whole world, but even within the small region of Renacida. And I haven't even touched, like, believe it or not, we haven't even gotten past the tip of the iceberg, to be honest. Like, legitimately, we have not. So have I clear? We're good? No. Okay. Next. This is probably going to be in parts, honestly. I'm about to say, because the channel that this is going on does not have 1,000 subs yet. I can't remember how many you need to post a video past 15 minutes, but so we might have to chop this in parts. So, characters. Let's take Jian, for example. He's the army general in the country that's at the front lines of the most important conflict, right? Wrong. He's not. It's the most important conflict for them, but there's issues all over the world, as you can see with Renacida. If you were to ask Renacida, they would say, well, the biggest issue for us was when the dark tide hit 20 years ago and potentially will come back. That's our biggest issue. We don't know much, nor do we care much about, I'm about to say, even if you take, like Jinzhou's on the outskirts. And even if you were to take that logic into account, in the Mount Firmament quest storyline, right? Jue literally tells Jinshi that it had a plan. This is a spoiler for the Jinzhou Mount Firmament Hongjin storyline, just so you know. It tells Jinshi, like, hey, she tells Jinshi, you can call her whatever you want. Jue has a female voice actor, I'm calling Jue a she. So she tells Jinshi, my plan is to freeze all of Jinzhou, and eventually sometime in the future, somebody might come to help. You're telling me that this place is the most important conflict, and the Sentinel literally just said, I'm gonna freeze this whole place in time, and maybe in the future, hopefully, not maybe, but hopefully in the future, somebody will come to help. If this was the most important place and the most important thing happening, I don't think that the Sentinel would be talking like that. The Sentinel knows, you know what I'm saying? Like, the Sentinel knows other people got problems that they're dealing with too. So yeah, no, not the most important conflict. And I'm not trying to be rude, I'm not trying to be condescending, but it's just not. He and Jinshi should be the most important characters so far. No, they shouldn't. To say should is, you are acting as if you know more about the story than the people who wrote it. You're saying that based on your own logic, not based on reality. There is no should, there's only what happens. We don't have enough information to be saying something about what should happen because the story just started. Maybe later you can say, well, this just doesn't make sense, like from a narrative perspective, like way down the line when we've had a solid amount of time to like grasp what the story is, but the story's literally just started. We should feel their presence throughout the entire game at different points. No, not really. You know, I think one of the problem is people are expecting this game to be I mean, I'll be honest. People are comparing this to Genshin too much. This isn't Genshin. They're not that. They don't have to follow the same line of storytelling as Genshin to be good. There are many different stories, many different anime with different ways of telling their story, and they're all good. Not to mention, you say that we should feel their presence throughout the entire game at different points. Maybe we will. You yourself admitted at different points. When are those different points exactly? Because the game just started. Maybe the different point is next year. You know, maybe it's, like I said, with that new character that they announced. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but the guy, Tui Yuan or something. Maybe we go back and then we feel their presence again. You know what I'm saying? But it's too early to be making a statement like this. But they're not even important in the Black Shores. Forget about Rinasita. Because these people have their own lives. Why would they be focused on Jinjo? I don't understand why you think that Jinjo is the end-all be-all of the whole world. Are they the front lines? Yes. They're the front lines because they're that region's area. But that's just against new threats. These people probably already have pre-existing threats. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, forget about Regency. We don't even see them ever talk to each other, despite them not only having the biggest status, but also because they're chosen by Jue, who turns out to be Rover's pet anyway. Yeah, I think they really don't understand what Jinjo is. We learned in the beginning, literally the beginning of the game. In the beginning, right? Like we learned at the beginning of the game that Jue is one sentinel. There are like, I think 9 different regions or something like that in Huanglong alone. In each city, there's like outer cities and inner cities. And Jinjo is on the outskirts. Jue is the sentinel for Jinjo, not Huanglong. There are a lot of other, and I believe they're all dragons, if I recall correctly, for Huanglong specifically. They get along together, which is interesting, which is cool. But like, we don't see them ever talk to each other because they have their own stuff going on. Rinasita is an isolationist country. That's what we were told that in the story, that they were an isolated country. So yeah, that's just not true. And it makes sense. But they're not even important in the Black Shores. Once again, the Black Shores is global. We saw Alto, we saw Encore, we saw Camellia. They were in Black Shores. And technically, Shorekeeper was here with us the entire time. We've seen that in a couple trailers, and they even showed it later. She was the butterfly that was in like even the earliest Wuthering Waves trailers when the game came out. We saw that blue butterfly, and that was her. So she was here from the beginning. But the point is, they were there, but they're also in Rinasita, and they're also going to be in New Federation, and they're also going to be in a bunch of other places. Jinjo's not that special. It's a cool area, but it's not more special than any other place. And I think that seems to be an issue with this person, where they have this idea that Jinjo is supposed to be the end-all be-all. One sentinel separated into 7 parts, maybe it takes form of a long... Oh, okay. I'm not sure if we know that it was separated. Did we? Did they say... You know what? Actually, you might be right. Which is interesting, because that actually kind of has some it crosses paths with the lore of a totally different game called Digimon, or really anime, but yeah. Just look up Digimon Huanglong and you'll see. yeah, it was separated. Yeah, because that Huanglong, that's all I'm gonna say. Huanglongmon, actually, who turns out to be Rover's pet anyway, but whatever. Okay. Pet is a bit demeaning, but you know, we're just gonna overlook that. All right, so hopefully I've clearly explained that part. Gosh, this is a lot of wrong, but you know, it's okay. It's okay. You know what? Don't blame this person. Blame me for not being a bigger content creator at this point, so I could have helped this person beforehand. So now, who's the equivalent in Genshin, for example? That would be Kaya, right? The cavalry captain without horses, and 4-star character. And yet, he's present and important to the entire lore, and will be even more important in the future. Wait, are you talking about Rover? Who's equivalent? Oh, you're talking about to Jian? No shot this person is trying to compare Kaya to Jian. And I like Kaya. But they're trying to compare Kaya to Jian. No, see, that's the problem. This person is trying to compare two stories that are not the same story. And even if they were the same character, Kaya shows up in the story in Mondstadt, and we don't see Kaya being relevant to the lore of the game until Sumeru's second half, when he shows up in that little cafe. Outside of that, you see him in like little quests and things like that, like story events, right? But like actually to the lore of the game and the main story, you don't see him until like 4 years later, realistically, where he actually becomes relevant for that part of the game story. But point being, maybe you're just talking about presence, right? If you're just talking about presence, once again, this is not the same story. And they're not the same character, which I already said, they're not. They're just not. You're trying to, this is false equivalence. They are not the same thing. And they should not be treated the same. He's the general, just like some other, there's a general in another country too. Are all the generals all of a sudden supposed to be like this council of generals that should always be seen? That's just not how it works. Okay, so he's present. The entire lore will be even more important in the future. Excuse me. He's tied to Conria and is the stepbrother of D-Luke, who's tied to the Patui. He's friends with Albedo, who's tied to the Hexen Circle, with Jean, who glues entire Mondstadt together and is tied to Venti and Acheron, the Archon, and so on. Everything belongs together in Genshin, and the characters are puzzle pieces to a well thought out picture. All right, that's great. I still play Genshin literally for this reason, because I think the lore is cool, right? But you're comparing apples to oranges here. That's not that character. And like I said, this is a cool way to tell a story, but that doesn't mean it's the only way to tell a story. Like I said, once again, watch my lore videos, okay? Watch my lore videos. You will see there are a lot of connections in this game as well. They're just different, because why would you want to play the exact same game twice? All right. Well, it's like a bunch of bubbles thrown together. Stuff is happening in every bubble, but it's shallow and leads to nothing. Not true. There are links that have been placed in the, once again, we literally only played the prologue for the most part. 2.0 is where the story starts. But even with that, there have been links placed. You just missed them. And that's okay that you missed them. It's so totally okay that you missed the links, but they exist. Just ask. HSR, for example, has also different bubbles, planets, and stories within the planets, but the stories have depth to them because they're told through well-written characters, sometimes even different perspectives, and they are tied to the huge overall lore. Wu's huge lore is Rover, the end. I've explained already that that's not true. You won't find the same quality in Wu in 1,000 years. Now, this right here is where I get to the point where, like, I'm just not taking you serious anymore. It sounds like you basically just made this whole thing just to hate. I'm sorry to tell you that. They just wanted to do whatever seems trendy plus fan service from running. But your game is HSR, right? Stick with it. Great game. And as bad as Wu is, it still has great purpose to siphon a few players from Hoyo so that Dawei gets rattled a bit. So basically, they just said the whole point of Wuthering Waves is just to make Hoyoverse better. The whole point of the game is to take a couple players so that Dawei gets rattled and encourages him to get his stuff together. You're relying on another game to make your game better. Crazy. Now, mind you, now that we've read everything, this person apparently says this is exactly why Wu's lore has never captured me. Well, no, it's not, because it's not true. So it's actually not why it didn't capture you. Maybe there's a legitimate reason why it didn't capture you, but this stuff is not that reason at all, in the slightest. Hopefully I've explained this well enough. Like, so I'm probably gonna have to cut this up into like 2 videos or something, because I can only put 15 minutes worth of a video together for the More Life Lessons channel, which is where this is getting posted. You can check that out. Let me see. You can check that out by going to my channel, Life Lessons Gaming, going to this part where it says links, and then social commentary, More Life Lessons. We have 68 subscribers as of right now. Second video is almost at 1,000, so that's nice. And I'm gonna be posting this conversation as well as many more conversations like this. Whether maybe I might talk about, this is my channel where I get to talk about stuff. We get to talk about, like I said, opinion pieces. It's not even always going to be about Wuthering Waves. Sometimes it'll just be about gaming in general. Just a bunch of different things. This is the place where I get to do that. Whereas on the main channel is where you will see, and I'm actually probably going to hide some of these videos so that it looks a little bit cleaner. On the main channel, you know, we'll have like interviews like this. This is my interview with Carter Thea's voice actor, actually. If you guys want to check it out, it was an amazing conversation. Legitimately an amazing conversation. This is my Clear Obscure Expedition 33 video. More of those are going to come out. These are my Wuthering Waves lore videos. So that's the type of stuff that we're going to keep on this one, which is like, you know, the kind of like really high quality polished content, whereas more of the like, you know, gritty, raw, you know, like, you know, just us having a conversation type stuff. That's where that's going to happen. And so, yeah, that's what's going to happen. So you all, y'all can let me know what you think in the comments, and I will catch you. Let me know if I'm right, if I'm wrong. I'm always open to conversation. As I said in the beginning, seek to understand before being understood. Be quick to listen, slow to speak. So I listened, I let them speak, and I responded. I didn't assume. I analyzed their points. And like I said, you all let me know what you think. Hey, you. Do the thing.